Okay, so maybe I guess we can start. Um, okay, so welcome everyone. I see a number of familiar faces around, so hi to those I know, and welcome to the new faces. Welcome to this seminar organized by the Flowers AI and Coxeye Lab at INRIA. Um, so the main topic we'll discuss today is related to a major challenge of AI, which is the grand goal of building open-ended AI systems that would be able to continuously acquire novel skills of increasing complexity and yet keeping learnable. And towards achieving this major goal, the team in the last 2 decades has been actually focusing on trying to understand better some of the main ingredients that enable humans to uh, achieve open-ended learning. And two of those ingredients that are very fundamental are one, curiosity-driven exploration on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's language. On the side of curiosity, our work trying to uncover the mechanisms of curiosity in humans enable us to identify two very important facets of human curiosity. The first facet is that humans have a specific kind of curiosity, which is the ability to self-generate their own goals, self-select their own goals, generate new creative goals. And this is what we've been calling autotelic exploration, which is a very powerful form of curiosity. And the second very important facet of human curiosity is the mechanisms that enable humans to decide what's interesting to explore, what goals are interesting to sample and to pursue when driven by curiosity. And one major idea we've been proposing for a long time to account for human curiosity is that the human brain is motivated to explore learning situations or goals that lead to learning progress. So goals that are initially challenging, but as you practice them, you're making progress in them. So a long time ago, we formulated that theory in a way that was very speculative. It was really based on theoretical arguments. But in recent years, there are a number of labs across the world who made new experimental paradigms to test some of the predictions of this theory in humans. And indeed, those experiments confirm that the human brain is using learning progress to guide curiosity. And so one big question is how can we transpose autotelic exploration driven by learning progress in machines? How it could enable autotelic AI machines to achieve some form of open-ended learning and development. And the second facet is language. Language is very important in humans for two reasons. One reason is that it enables to acquire knowledge that was already discovered by social peers in the past. And so through cultural transmission, language enabled to guide curiosity in a much more efficient manner. But there is a second facet of language that's very important. It is that language is a compositional system. It's a compositional cognitive tool that enables humans to generate new creative abstract goals. So that's very powerful, but at the same time, this poses a very challenging problem, both for humans and for machines, which is given such a powerful tool to imagine creative goals, how to navigate in such very large spaces of goals. And so recently we've been building some new systems, and especially the Magellan system, which will be presented today, which we believe addresses some of the main challenges and obstacles to transpose some of those mechanisms that are used in humans, transpose that into machines, and enable actually those machines to navigate efficiently, to do automatic curriculum learning efficiently. And so now I will leave the floor to Loris Gaven, who will present the Magellan system. And just as a bit also of context, that there was a project that was co-led with Loris Gaven, Clément Romac, and Thomas Carta from the Flowers Lab, with a collaboration with Cédric Collat from MIT, Olivier Sigaud from Sorbonne University, and Sylvain Lamprier from University of Angers. And just before Loris starts, we'll have roughly a 1 hour talk and then a 1 hour question session today. If you want to ask questions, you can already ask them during the chat, and then someone will animate the question part afterwards. We will only take the questions after Loris has finished the talk. So, Loris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pierre, for the introduction. And hello, everyone, and thank you to be here today for this presentation. Maybe I can start with a quick introduction of myself. So I'm Loris Gaveren. I'm a first-year PhD student at INRIA in the FLIRS team, and I'm supervised by Pierre-Yves Houdaillet. And I'm working on reinforcement learning, LLMs, and curiosity. And specifically, I am interested in how to combine all of these to create open-ended agents that can learn by themselves only by interacting with the world. And recently, we did the work in this direction with people in the team, which we call Magellan for Metacognitive Prediction of Learning Progress Guide Autotelic LLM Agents in Large Goal Spaces, that has been accepted at ICML this year. So I will present this work. And I will start with some context and by introducing you to what we call language grounding. There are many forms of language grounding, and so some of them can be summarized to what we call multimodal grounding. It is the idea that we can learn to associate words or sentences to objects in different modalities like images, audio, or touch, and more. And this kind of multimodal grounding is really present in today's LLMs, and especially when they are trained for it, like multimodal language models. And on the other side, we have what we call functional grounding. Functional grounding, it's the capacity to link language to actual outcome in the world by using language as a tool to achieve goal, for example. It can be to use language as a tool to achieve goal with others, like to collaborate with others to achieve goals. But it can also be to use language for ourselves to reason or to plan to achieve some goals. And the way LLMs are trained today make them limited in functional grounding because they never interact with the world directly. And so they are not very good for this kind of task. A solution to functionally ground the LLM in the real world is to simply make them interact with the real world directly, make them learn by interacting with the real world. And one way of doing this is to use reinforcement learning. So we'll have an LLM that will act in an environment by taking actions in this environment. Then it will receive feedback from this environment. And what we want is to train these LLM agents to learn to achieve goals in the environment by interacting with the environment. So we'll functionally ground the agent, the LLM, in this environment. And this is something that we are working on in the team. And for example, in this paper that we published 2 years ago at ICML, where they put an LLM directly in an interactive environment. This environment was the Baby AI environment, which is a grid world where the agent have to navigate in the world to achieve the goal that we give to it. And so to train the LLM in this environment, what they made is to first they create a text version of this environment that they call Baby AI text. And to train the LLM, they give it a prompt where in the prompt they put the goal that they want the LLM to achieve and some information on the current state of the environment. And they ask the LLM to take action in this environment in the form and where action are a predefined set of sentences. And to determine which action to sample next, they look at the probability that the LLM outputs these sentences given the prompt. So they do this for each action in the action set, and they look, and then they normalize the probability over all action in the set of action, and it gives us a probability distribution over the action state. And with this, they can train the LLM with reinforcement learning to achieve goals in this baby AI environment. So they are functionally grounding the LLM in this environment using reinforcement learning. And for this, they use the PPO algorithm, which is a reinforcement learning algorithm. And recently, we made another extension of this method where we use the soft actor critique algorithm, which is an off-policy algorithm, and it tends to be more sample efficient, meaning that it requires less interaction with the environment to learn an optimal strategy. So here we just see an example that how we can functionally ground an LLM in the real world in an interactive environment. But there is some limitation to this work. And one is that if we want to build generally capable agents that are generally useful for humans, we need to functionally ground them not only in small interactive environment, but in the real world. But the real world is completely different from the environment that we know because it is what we call an open-ended environment, and in an open-ended environment, you can imagine an infinity of possible goals, compared to Baby AI, where there were only hundreds of goals. And so a new question arises, which is when you have an infinity of goals, which goal should you choose to train the agent, and in what order should you train on this goal to progress the most in the environment? This is a problem that we call curriculum learning. And this problem was not really a problem in Baby AI text, because we can just train the agent on all the 100 goals, but in the real world we need to define a curriculum. So the big question is how should we select the goals in this vast space of possible goals? What is habitually done and what it was done in the Baby AI environment was that it's the experimenter that will give the goals that will choose the goals to give to the LLMs, and that will reward and that will tell the LLM if he reached the goal or not, and give it as a reward to the LLM. But it requires the experimenter to define the goal he wants to train the agent on, and when there is an infinity of goals, you can do this. So something that we developed in the team was the notion of autotelic agents. Autotelic agents is an autotelic agent will not rely on an external experimenter, but will by itself choose which goal to train on, and by itself he will determine if he reach or not the goal. In the rest of the presentation, we will only focus on how do we select the goal, and not how we can evaluate if we reach it or not. So the question is, how should we select this goal in this vast space of goal? And something that we use in the team is what Pierre-Yves introduced in the introduction, which is the notion of learning progress, so the learning progress hypothesis. Initially, it was developed to account for human curiosity. So it was used to model what goals a human will choose. So the learning progress is just if you have different tasks, here they are represented by different colors. The learning progress, and this is here it's the error the agent make on these different tasks. The learning progress is just the derivative the error on this task. And so what the learning progress hypothesis is saying is that humans tend to prefer goals where they have a high learning progress. And it has been verified by experiments with people. For example, they did an experiment where they show different activities to a group of people, and they let them explore these different activities by making them choose which activities they want to practice, and they make it repetitively. So they do like 20 activities. And they show that the learning progress was a good model to predict what activity the people will choose next. And it was the activity with the highest learning progress. But it has not be only used with human, but also with robotic initially. Where here they were looking at the learning progress on the competence. So for each different goals, they was looking to the competence and to the learning progress on each of these competence, and they choose the competence with the highest learning progress to train the robot to master different skills. Then it has been applied more generally in machine learning. But the big question is now how can we estimate the competence on each goals? Because here I show you the curve of competence, but in practice, when you train of different goals, you don't know this competence curve, so you can't derive the learning progress directly. And so there has been different attempts to estimate this competence and this learning progress. And first, I want to present you how it was done in discrete goal space. So it's the goal space that we are interested in when we work with language goals. It's a discrete goal space. And when goals are discrete, there is two family of methods to compute the learning progress. And there is one of them that we call the online LP, where the idea is for each goal in the goal space, we'll keep a buffer where we'll store all the outcomes the agent get on this goal. So for each goal, we have a list of 0 or 1, which are the success and failure of the agent on these goals. And to compute the learning progress, we'll first estimate the current competence of the agent for each goal by averaging over the most recent experiment in the buffer, and look at the past competence of the agent by averaging over the past experience of the agent in the buffer. And it allows us to compute the learning progress by to estimate the learning progress by taking the difference between the current competence and the past competence. And it's then used to select the next goal to train on. The good point of this method is that it is really computationally efficient. But the drawback of this method is that when the goal space is really large, so we have a lot of goals, we'll have few examples or no example for the goals. So we will be enabled to compute the competence and the learning progress on these goals. So the more the goal space is large, the less the estimation of the learning progress is accurate. Then there is a second family of methods to estimate the learning progress, and we call this method the eval-LP methods. And this method simply consists in at each time step we will evaluate the agent on all the goals on the goal space. So we'll test our agent on n times on each goal to get an estimation of its competence. And to compute the learning progress, we just look at our current competence that we just estimate and the competence that we estimate in the past, and it gives us the learning progress for each goal. The good point of this method is that it is really accurate because here we nearly estimate the true competence of the agent. But the problem of this method is the same as the method before. Is that if the goal space is too large, the evaluation of the agent on all the goals will be too much costly, and it's intractable in practice when you have a lot of goals. So for both these methods, for online LP and eval LP, what people do in practice when they have too much goals is that they regroup goals in cluster. They regroup goals that have similar learning trajectory in cluster. So as in these examples, we have a lot of goals, but we can regroup them in only three clusters. And the idea is to, instead of computing the competence and LP at the goal level, we'll compute the competence and LP at the group level. But to make this group, it requires expert knowledge on the environment, and it's not always available in practice. So there is another form of method to compute the learning progress, and it is when we are in continuous goal space. Instead of treating each goal individually, we can in fact learn this cluster by using, in this paper, they use the mixture of Gaussian to determine which goals are similar, and then they compute the learning progress inside. They compute the same learning progress for each element that are in the same Gaussian. But the problem is the method is that it works only on continuous goal space, and so we can use it directly with discrete goal space as language. Another problem is that it requires that the goal space is well structured. By this I mean that it requires that 2 points in the goal space that are near should be goals that have the same learning trajectory, the same learning dynamics. And another problem is that they use a mixture of Gaussian, so it don't work really well in high-dimensional space, and it requires to fix the number of Gaussian at the start of the training. So what we did in Magellan. So the first idea was to start from this method. So instead of using a Gaussian mixture, we'll use a multi-layer perceptron to directly estimate we'll train it to directly estimate the competence on each goal of our agent. So to do this, we'll keep a buffer of the recent experience of our agent, and we'll train a model to given a pair of goal and outcome to predict the outcome on the goal. Given a goal to predict the outcome on the goal, so it will learn to predict the competence of the goal of the current method. But to compute the learning progress, we also need to access the competence of the agent in the past. So to do this, we stored in a buffer the weights of our competence estimator. And the idea was that our model at time t minus n was a model that was estimating the competence of our agent at time t minus n. So this is exactly what we want. And to compute the learning progress, you just have to, on the goal, we just have to estimate its current competence and to reuse our old weights to estimate the old competence of the agent. And it gives us the learning progress. But this is not enough because goals are discrete. So what we did is language goals are discrete. So what we did is to pass the goal into an LLM that will generate a continuous representation of the goal in the latent space, and then we'll use this representation to predict the competence on the goal. And what we did is that we are not only training the MLP on top of the representation, but we are also fine-tuning the pre-trained LLM. You will see after that it's really important to fine-tune the pre-trained LLM because its original knowledge are not sufficient to just estimate the competence. So this is an overview of the method. So we have a big goal space. We will take all the goal of this goal space and we'll pass it in our competence estimator at time t and at time t minus n. Then from these two competence estimation, we can compute the learning progress at time t on the whole goal space. And now that we know the learning progress of each goal, we want to select a goal among all of these. And to do this, we use a method where we select the goal proportionally to the learning progress estimated. And with some probability for exploration of the goal space, we'll just sample the goal randomly. And then we will use this goal to train our LLM, to functionally ground our LLM in the environment. And to do this, we'll use the GLAM method that I presented earlier. And we use the same LLM to predict the competence and to achieve the goal. And so the outcome of the agent on the environment will serve to update our competence estimation. And we have a loop where we sample goals, then we train the agent, then we sample goals. And both the estimator, the competence estimator and the RL agent are progressing. So this is the environment on which we experiment. So this is the environment. It's a scene where the agent is the hand, and we have different objects and different objects or different kinds, and this object can combine with each other. For example, if you combine water with a seed, it will give you a plant. Then if you combine the plant with a baby herbivore, it will make it grow. And the herbivore with the baby carnivore will grow also. And so we have some instruction that will pass to the LM, like grasp an object or grow an object. And what we will consider as a goal for our goal selector is not only the instruction, but also the object we'll put in the scene. So it will make, so if we account for all the possible combination, it gives us millions of possible goals. So we'll have to select among all of these goals, which one is the best to train our agent. And if you look at the goal space, you can see that there is some combination of instruction and object in the scene that makes the goal impossible. For example, if the water is missing, this one is not obvious, but if the water is missing, you will not. If your goal is to grow a lion and that the water is missing in the scene, you will not be able to grow the seed. And so if you can grow the seed, you won't be able to grow the baby herbivore, and so you can grow the lion. So there is a lot of goals like this that are impossible, but that are not obvious. And our Magellan LP estimator will have to detect these impossible goals. So it is the repartition of the goals. So you can see that the majority of the goals are impossible. There is a lot of grasp goals that are the easy goal because you just have to move to an object and grasp it. And the more complex goals are way less represented in the goal space. So it will be a challenge for the agent to learn the grow carnivore goals because they are almost not represented in the goal space. So the first experiment we did is that we train an agent using a perfect Oracle curriculum. And on the side, we fit different methods we train different methods to estimate the competence of the agent during the training. And at the end, we average the error on the competence prediction, and it's what you see on the y-axis. And on the x-axis, it is the competence estimation cost. So how much additional episode it costs to evaluate the competence of the agent. And if you take a look, we can see the methods that I presented earlier, like the online LP methods, which is the one that for each buffer, each goal keep a buffer and try to estimate the competence only using the information on each buffer. And you can see that when the size of the goal space is growing, the competence estimation error become bigger. Here we have also the eval LP method that I presented, the one that requires to evaluate the agent on all the goals to estimate the competence. And here it's obvious, but when the goal space grow, you have more goals, so it's more costly to evaluate the competence. And the two EK method is the one where we use expert knowledge to create a group. So here the group are this group. So we have only 5 groups. We have the impossible goals that are already grouped with the grass, the raw plant, and the grow herbivore and the grow carnivore. So here it's easy. It's like there is only 5 goals. So it scale very well with the size of the goal space. The size of the goal space have no impact on the prediction. And you can see that our method it's well placed, is almost similar to these methods with expert knowledge. So we managed to estimate the competence well, even when the goal space grow, and the size of the goal space seems to have no impact on how well we can estimate the competence. Then we used our methods to train the agent on the environment by selecting goals. And we compared it to different baselines. The first obvious baseline is uniform goal sampling. So here we just sample goals uniformly in the goal space. So as the goal space is, as I show you, in the goal space there is a majority of impossible goals. So it's not a really good idea to sample uniformly in this goal space. So here the uniform baseline is really bad. Then we have the online ALP method, which is better than uniform, but is not perfect because the goal space is big, so the estimation of the learning progress is not really good. And here we have our method that can estimate the learning progress better, and that can learn the different type of goals more rapidly and significantly faster than the two baseline. And here we have the method with expert knowledge, which is we follow almost a perfect curriculum. And so it do better than our method, but it's not that far. Okay, earlier I told you that we wanted not only to train the MLP on top of the LLM to predict the competence, but also the whole LLM. And here you can see why it is important to train the whole LLM, because what you are seeing here is the embedding space of the different goal before training. So if we take an LLM and we pass it our goal space and we look at the representation it have of this goal space, we will see that you can see some cluster, but you can also see that the impossible goals are mixed with the other goals. And here it's after training our competence estimator, so after fine-tuning the LLM to predict the competence. And here you can clearly see that all the impossible goals are clustered apart of the other goal, and you can discern the different clusters. So the cluster of grasp goal, of grow plant goals, grow herbivore goals and grow carnivore goals. And what you see also is, I don't know if you see it because it's maybe tiny, but we have the circle and the triangle. The circle are goals that has been seen during training, and the triangle are goals that has never been seen during training. So it's goals on object that never has been seen by the competence estimator. So for example, here our agent have seen the goal grow carrot in training, but it has never seen the goal grow potato in the training. And it have never seen any potato in the training. But since we use a pre-trained LLM, it is able to use its common sense knowledge to tell that a potato is also a plant, so it should be of the same difficulty as grow carrot. So it places it on the same, almost on the same point on the embedding space. So this plot clearly show that you need to train the LLM if you want to estimate the competence accurately. Here is another experiment that we did, where here we train an agent using our Magellan goal sampler. And at some point in the training, we cut the training and we swipe and we change the goal space completely. So instead of here we had the goal of the training set, and here we stop the training and we put the goal of the test set, and we continue the training. And what we wanted to see here is that if our LP estimator is able to generalize, it will continue to progress because he already know which goals are interesting at this point, even if the goal space change. Where the other method, like online ALP, will have no buffer for this new goal, so it will restart from scratch to estimate the learning progress. And here we see that it's what happened. Our method continue to progress. So I told you that Magellan was really useful in large goal spaces, but there is still a limitation, which is that for now we use the method only to evaluate the goal and not to generate them. And so the problem is that if we have an infinity of goals, we can pass all the goals in our LLM to evaluate all of them. It will be too much costly. So maybe a solution could be to instead of selecting the goal, train a goal generator. And what we can do is to use our method to judge the goals that are generated by the generator. And so we can fine-tune this generator using our model as a critique of the goal generated by the generator. And since our model is a neural network, it is differentiable. So what you can do is just generate a goal, pass it in our model, and take a gradient from the output of our LP estimation to the weights of the goal generator. And so you can train the generator to generate goals that have high learning progress. And if you have a generator, it can work in infinite goal space because you don't need to evaluate of the goals of the goal space every time you want to sample a new goal. Okay. Another application of our method is also for education, because here we did curriculum learning for training an LM, an AI agent, but we can also do curriculum learning on students. And it's work that has been done in the team. For example, in the thesis of Benjamin Clément, he went to different schools in Aquitaine, and also he tried this method on students. And what he shows is that methods that are exercise that are given to students driven by curriculum by learning progress are more allow the student to learn more efficiently and to be more motivated compared to handmade curriculum for students. So this is the kind of application where we can use our methods, because here in this project they use learning progress, but they compute it with online LP methods somehow. So what they did is that they made group by hand, and they use the online LP method on this group of exercise. But if you want to scale this method to have a million of exercise, you will not be able to ask expert to class all these exercise in different groups. So here you will need methods that automatically create this group, and it's what our method Magellan is doing. So it is an application. Education is also an application for curriculum learning. And we tried a small experiment where we take different maths exercise from the Open R1 dataset from Hugging Face. We take exercise in different categories like algebra, geometry, and number theory. And we simulate a student that is learning on these different category of exercise. So first we simulate a student that first learn to master algebra, then he learn geometry, then he learn number theory. And we train our competence estimator Magellan, and we also train the baseline online LP on this, without telling the method that an exercise is in the category of algebra or geometry or number theory. We didn't give this information, but our Magellan method managed to understand that the student first progress on algebra, then on geometry, then on number theory, where the online LP struggle to estimate the competence, because here we had a lot of goal. So that's all for the presentation. You can find the paper on arXiv, and also the code to replicate all the results on our GitHub page on the Magellan repository. And also we'll be at ICML in 2 weeks to present